Okay, so we talked last week about segment addition, and we did proofs with segments and pieces like that. So today and tomorrow we're going to be talking about angles, and we will, not today, but tomorrow we'll get into proofs with angles. So we're going to kind of refresh on some things that we have already discussed with angles, talking about how to find the measure of angles, how to find a variable if it's part of an angle. So the first thing I want you to look at are the three things about angle addition. Here, first you have a postulate, and you don't have to remember the number of the postulate because it's different for every book. But the angle addition postulate, which is just like the segment addition postulate, what says I can take this angle and I can add this angle and I get a bigger angle. Okay, so if I take two smaller angles and I add them together, I can get a bigger angle. So it says if D is on the interior of ABC, I'm going to kind of draw you an example here. Okay, so if D is on the interior, what does interior mean? The inside. Okay, so if D is on the inside of angle ABC, like this, whoops, then it says that you can take the measure of angle ABD, that's the top angle, plus the measure of angle DBC, that's the bottom angle, and you can add them together to get the whole angle ABC. Then the next one is a theorem, and it says, it's called the supplement theorem, which I don't usually call it that. I usually call it, I just say it's a linear pair. But if two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary angles. First of all, two angles forming a linear pair means they make a what? A line. And a line is how many degrees? 180. Isn't that what supplementary means? So if I had two angles, look something like this. Okay, I'm just going to label them angle 1 and angle 2. Those two angles together form a straight line. They are a linear pair, which means those two angles would add up to be 180 degrees. Okay, we're going to use all of this stuff today to find missing angle measures and to find variables. And then the third one is called the complement theorem, and it says if the non-common sides of two adjacent angles form a right angle, then they are complementary angles. I'm going to show you a picture of that here. Okay, so it says if the non-common sides of two adjacent angles. Okay, so think about these two angles right here. If they form a right angle, so if I had this marked like that to say that that's a right angle, does everybody see the two angles in there? Okay, that means I'm going to call that angle 3 and angle 4. What that would mean is that angle 3 and angle 4 are complementary, which means they add up to be 90. Okay, so different scenarios. You can have two small angles. You can add them and set them equal to the bigger angle. You can have a linear pair, which is two angles that make a straight line, so they would be 180 degrees, which is supplementary. Or you have two adjacent angles that form a right angle, which means those two angles are complementary, so they would add up to be 90. And we're just going to use all of that today to find x and to find some missing angle measures. Is everybody okay? Sure, okay. Let's take a look at this first example, and I'm going to kind of label my pictures as we go. First of all, you all see angles 1, 2, and 3 in that picture. They're all labeled with numbers 1, 2, and 3. And what does it tell you about angle 2 just in the markings in the picture? It's a right angle. It's a right angle, which means it is 90 degrees. Okay. So it says, what is the measure of angle 3? So we're trying to find out what angle 3 is. If angle 1 is 23 and angle ABC is 131. So let's mark that in our picture. Angle A, it tells me, is 23 degrees. And what did you just tell me angle 2 was? 90. And it says ABC, this whole thing, okay, the whole big angle is, what does it say, 131? Okay, so all of that together is going to be 131. How could I find out what that little angle 3 is? We're going to add 23 and 90, the two angles that we know. which is going to give me what, 113? And then what do I do with that? Yep, take that out of 131, and the leftover part will be my angle 3, which tells me it is how many degrees? 18. Okay, so just using all the information they told me. They told me that the measure of angle 1 was 23. They marked that the measure of angle 2 was 90, and they told me the whole big angle was 131. So I took the two small ones, I added them together, and then I subtracted that from 131, and that would be the leftover piece. Okay, I want you to try the next one. It says, what is the measure of angle 3 if the measure of angle 2 is 26 degrees? Pay attention to the markings. Pay attention to what your angles make. There's a couple of different ways you can approach this one. But again, it tells me that angle 2 is 26 degrees, and it helps if you label everything in your picture. Label what it tells you. It wants to know what angle 3 is. Again, there's a couple of different ways you can figure this one out. What does angle 1's measure? 90, because it has the box. And again, it tells me that angle 2 is 26. Here's a question. What do angles 1, 2, and 3 give you when you put them all together? Okay. Yes and no. Yes, they add up to be 180 degrees, but it's only two angles that can be supplementary. But they do give you a straight line, right? So if you think about this, all three of these together, starting at angle 1, going through 2, all the way to 3, that gives me that straight line, which means all three of them add up to be 180 degrees. So what we can do is we can take that 90 and that 26, and we can add those together. And then we can subtract that from 180. And that's going to give me 64. That's one way. I want to ask you this. Erase some of my stuff. If it tells me right here that angle 1 is 90, what would 2 and 3 have to be together? Wouldn't they also have to be 90? So another way you could do it is you could just take 90 minus the 26. And that still gives you the 64, right? Okay. So with that one, it just depends on what you see. Do you see all three of them giving you the 180 because they're a straight line? Or do you see the two together giving you 90? Either way, the answer is going to be the same, whether you work it out by adding the two small ones and subtracting it from 180, or just taking the 26 away. A little bit of sense? All right, now we're going to put some variables in it, and we're going to take a look at the next example. It's asking us for the measure of angle 4 if the measure of angle 5 is 2x and the measure of angle 4 is x plus 9. If I want to find the degrees, what do I have to solve for first? X. I have to find x first. Okay, so looking at your picture, what kind of angles are 4 and 5? Look back at your second thing that we listed up there, that first theorem. They are what? What pair? A linear pair, which means they add up to be 180. So what we want to do is we want to take the measure of angle 4. What do they tell me that is? X plus 9, okay. And then a measure of angle 5, which they told me was 2x. I want to do what to those? Add them. Okay, so x plus 9 plus 2x. And I'm going to set it equal to, how much is a linear pair? 180. Okay, so what I need you to do is solve that for x first. Solve that equation for x. If I have x plus 9 plus 2x equals 180, what we want to do first is combine our terms. What's 1x plus 2x? Okay. What will we do next? Subtract the 9 over, yep. So that's going to give me 3x is equal to what, 171? And then I'm going to divide by 3. Thank you. Whoops. Is 57 my actual answer, though? No. We wanted to know the measure of angle 4, and they told me the measure of angle 4 was x plus 9, but what is x? 57. So I'm going to go 57 plus 9, which is going to give me, what, 66? Well, because up here in the beginning in the question, they told me that the measure of angle 4 was x plus 9. So I had to take what I had for x and add 9 to it to get the total value of angle 4. If they had just asked me for x, then 57 would be my answer. But they asked me to find the measure of angle 4. All right, go ahead and do that next one. This one isn't too terribly difficult. That is, if you can see your picture decently. Look at your picture. Can you guys see where the numbers are labeled 3 and 4 in the picture? It tells you that the measure of angle 3 is 55 degrees, and it wants you to find the measure of angle 4. Look at your picture to see what kind of relationship those two have. Look at the picture over there to the right. What do you know about angle 3 and angle 4? What do they give you together? They are supplementary, which means they give you 180. So if angle 3 is 55, how do I find angle 4? Subtract it from 180, right? If the two of them give you, what does that give you? 125. Okay, if you're looking at your two pictures right here, 3 and 4 are a linear pair, which means they add up to be 180. They told me what 3 was, so I have to just subtract that to get angle 4. So far, so good? Sure. Okay. Let's look at this next picture. First of all, let me remind you of another kind of angle that we have discussed before, vertical angles. What did we learn about vertical angles? They are always congruent. Okay. So in the next example, it has 4 different angles that you're wanting to find the measure of. They gave you one of the angles was 38 degrees. What other angle or what angle is vertical to the 38-degree angle? Angle 1. So what would angle 1 also be? 38 degrees, okay? Now, there is one other pair of vertical angles that I can go ahead and answer the measure of. Would it be angle 2, angle 3, or angle 4? Which one can I go ahead and tell you what the measure of it is without having to do any math? Angle 3 is vertical to which angle? The right angle. So what would angle 3 be? 90. Quick question. Are angle 2 and angle 4 going to be the same whenever we find them? They are. So if you can just figure out how to find one of those, whether it be angle 2 or angle 4, the other one is going to equal the same thing. So take a look at your picture. There are multiple different approaches here. Many different ways you can find either angle 2 or angle 4, depending on which way you look at it and what you see. Good. Cersei, tell me how you found, did you find 2 or 4 and 4? Tell me how you did it.
I subtracted 90 minus 38.
Okay. So was that for 2 or 4? I mean, it really doesn't matter, but okay. So what she said is she subtracted 38 from 90. If we take a look, because this angle right here is a right angle, what does that mean angle 1 and angle 2 are also going to be? 90 degrees. Okay, so 1 plus 2 equals 90. So therefore, I could just say 90 minus 38. That's going to give me 52? Okay. There is also another way to do it. Did anybody do it differently that wants to tell me how they did it? Go ahead, Zion.
I added 38 and 90 together, and I ended up getting 100. And then I subtract that by 1.
Okay. Yes, okay. And again, you can look at it either different. You can look at it with 2 or 4, but you have your 90 degree right here. So this one plus 1 plus 2, those give me that straight line there, which is 180 degrees. So the other option is we could take 90 plus 38, and you don't have to do both. I'm just showing you different options. And then you take and you subtract that from 180. And either way, you still get the 52 degrees. Okay, so it just depends on what you see when you look at this picture. Do you see the 90 or do you see the 3 of them together giving you 180? Either way, we can fill out that, right? You'll have something like that on your test where I'll give you a couple of pieces of information and then I'll ask you to find all of the other missing angles in that picture. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, let's take a look at the next one. It says for the last 2 examples, it says to find x, and then it also says to find each angle measure. That means once you find x, you're going to have to plug it in. So look at the one for A. I want to see if you guys can figure it out. Look at the 2 angles that they gave you. They gave you 2x plus 40, and they gave you 4x. The first question you need to ask yourself is what kind of relationship do they have?
They look like they're the same line. Same.
Why would they be the same? What kind of angles are they?
90 or like
Starts with a V.
a V.
V. Vertical. Aren't they right across from each other? So they are vertical angles. So this is kind of what you look for in a picture, especially when you're dealing with angles. Are they congruent because they're vertical? Are they supplementary because they give you a straight line? Are they complementary because they give you a right angle? Okay, those are kind of the things we're looking for. So you have to be able to look at the picture and identify what angle pairs are they. Are they congruent? Are they supplementary? Are they complementary? But you just told me they were vertical, which means they are congruent. So how would I solve that one for x? So tell me my equation. 2x plus 40 equals 4x, right? Those 2 angles are equal to each other because they are vertical angles. So the very first thing I want you to do is solve that for x. Once you find x, I want you to plug it back in and tell me what the measure of that angle is and what that angle is. I need to get my x's on the same side of the equation. So what is it that x is going to equal here? 20. And so if I were to plug that back in, what is 4 times 20? What's 4 times 2? 8. Stick a 0 on it. 4 times 20 is 80. And if this angle is 80, what does the other angle have to be? 80? Okay. All right, what about B? I need to set up an equation for those. Are those congruent? Are they supplementary? Or are they complementary? They are supplementary. They are two angles that form a linear pair. So in order to solve for x, you're going to need to take the two of those, the 2x, and then the 4x plus 60. You're going to add them together and set them equal to 180. Okay, they're supplementary. So you need to take the two angles, 2x plus 4x plus 60, set it equal to 180 and solve for x. Stephanie Bridges. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Good to have her on too. Oh, well, they do. Okay. So you said Jaden? Okay, girl or boy? Okay, sounds good. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so what we need to make sure is if you look at those two, can you tell that they make a straight line together? Okay, so that means they add up to be 180. So you're going to take the 2x, the first angle, plus the second angle, 4x plus 60, and set it equal to 180. Okay, so the two angles, the 2x angle. Yeah. Tell me what the two angles are. What do they call the first one? To the left. It's 2x plus what's the other angle? And then that's going to equal 180. Yep. You just take those two angles, the 2x and then the 4x plus 60. Combining your like terms first, combine your 2x and your 4x because they're on the same side of the equation. What does 2x plus 4x give you?
What are you doing right now?
Then what would I do? Yep. What's that, 120? And then what do I do? Okay. And so I happen to get the same answer I got last time, what x is going to be? 20. And then all I want you to do from there is plug it back in. Plug it into the 2 times x and plug it into the 4x plus 60. So what is 2 times 20? 40. Okay, so that's one of them. And then I'm going to go 4 times 20 plus 60. Or I could just do 180 minus 40. That would work too. 4 times 20 is 80 plus 60, which gives me, do those two add to give me 180? Okay. Is everybody okay with those? You have to be able to look at the picture and identify, are they vertical so that I set them equal? Are they a linear pair so that I add them and set them equal to 180? Or are they complementary, which means I add them and set them equal to 90? Is there anything on the back of that? Okay.